And thank you for joining the media briefing for Council President Kate Stewart. I'm Jordan Lindsay. Reporters, if you still need permission to record, please note that in the chat, or if you have any questions, you can note that in the chat or raise your hand and I will call on you accordingly. Now I'll go ahead and toss it to Council President Stewart for opening remarks. Council President, to you.
Great. Thank you, Jordan. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I first want to start today by expressing our gratitude to all the first responders who responded to the flash flooding that occurred in locations across Montgomery County on Saturday afternoon and evening. And I also want to thank the Office of Emergency Management staff. This summer has been a very busy one and for significant storms, and we appreciate all their ongoing efforts to keep us safe. Now, tomorrow, our council agenda is a very busy one, and I want to highlight some of the issues we will be covering. First, the council will receive a briefing from Montgomery County's Department of Environmental Protection about the current and future strategies for solid waste disposal in the county. This is a continuation of the conversations we had with DEP in January of this year about the future of zero waste in Montgomery County, as well as discussions held during the FY26 budget deliberations. In November 2024, the county executive and council received notice of intent to extend the resource recovery facility contract by 5 years from April 2026 to April 2031, with flexibility for early termination. The county executive recommended moving forward with the extension and proposed short-term capital improvements to support continued operations. The council took proactive steps during our FY26 budget process to fund these essential improvements, ensuring safety and reliability of the facility, while long-term waste strategies continue to be considered. Demonstrating fiscal responsibility and a commitment to thoughtful long-term planning, the council deferred funding in the FY26 budget until DEP conducted further evaluation of all available disposal alternatives. We will receive an update tomorrow from our DEP to assess viable waste strategies, including long-haul disposal and potential closure of the facility. The council continues to lead a transparent planning process on this subject. We are taking a thoughtful and informed approach to evaluate all long-term waste disposal options. As part of the shared next steps laid out by DEP, they plan to issue a request for proposal on long haul to landfill suggestions in August or September of this year, 2025, and return to the council in January 2026 prior to awarding a contract. DEP plans to have the county make a contract award in early 2026 before the council's next budget cycle. In addition, tomorrow the council will hold a work session and vote on ZTA 25-02 Workforce Housing Development, which is a measure led by council members Friedson and Fanny Gonzalez. I'm a co-sponsor of the zoning text amendment that is one of the many steps the council is taking to increase the supply of housing, reduce costs, and increase pathways to home ownership for working families and residents in Montgomery County. This zoning measure is designed to encourage the development of workforce housing in select residential zones by allowing multiple housing types in residential R40, R60, R90, and R200 zones located along major travel corridors such as boulevards and downtown streets. It supports middle-income families and the local workforce by requiring at least 15% of new units to be affordable to households earning up to 120% of the area median income. That is about $180,000 for a family of 4. This zoning measure aims to help build more homes that are affordable to young professionals, teachers, firefighters, police officers, biotech and healthcare workers, and those striving to own a home in the communities they serve, which is the chief concern for many residents we hear from. Before voting, we'll be reviewing the amendments the committee made to the bill, such as removing high-speed highways from eligibility and banning flag lots to help ensure safety, compatibility with neighborhoods, and thoughtful growth. We will also be introducing a companion legislation, SR 25-02, which would prohibit the creation and use of through lots and flag lots for optional method workforce housing development. This SRA addresses concerns we have heard from residents during the deliberations of this zoning text amendment. Tomorrow, we also are holding a number of public hearings. On the environmental side, we will hold a public hearing on a bill and zoning text amendment that make up the Native Plant Protection Act, which I am co-sponsoring and is led by Councilmember Glass. This bill would exempt native plants and grasses from weed removal requirements and prohibit the sale of invasive bamboo in the county. The zoning measure would require 50% native plant species in open space landscaping and 50% native species in general landscaping plant material. Native plants support local biodiversity, providing essential food and habitat for Montgomery County's pollinators, birds, and other wildlife. Native plants help protect the county's natural ecosystems by reducing the spread of invasive species and supporting healthier soils and waterways. Montgomery Park's native plant program, for instance, grows over 125 different species of locally sourced native plants to restore natural areas and improve water quality across the county. Encouraging the use of native species for residents and taking steps to limit the propagation of invasive non-native species aligns with Montgomery County's climate resilience and environmental goals, contributing to healthier, more sustainable green spaces in urban, suburban, and rural areas. I look forward to hearing the public testimony tomorrow. And to close today, I want to highlight our next United in Service webinar, which will be led by Councilmember Balcom this Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Zoom. The focus of this session is pursuing new opportunities, advancement through workforce training and certification programs, and she will be joined by representatives from WorkSource Montgomery, the universities at Shady Grove and Montgomery College to discuss the programs offered and to provide advice for residents who are looking for new career opportunities. The login information for this webinar can be found on the Council's webpage, where we also have the recordings and PowerPoints of previous United in Service webinars. We encourage everyone to join the webinar this Wednesday to learn more about the opportunities for career enhancement available in Montgomery County and to check out our recordings of previous webinars for more information. I think that's about it for me, Jordan. I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much, Council President Stewart. Reporters, again, if you have any questions, you can note that in the chat or you can raise your hand and I will call on you accordingly. Up first, I do see Jenny Bixby with Bethesda Today. Good afternoon, Jenny.
Good afternoon, Jordan. Good afternoon, Kate. You spoke a little bit about the ZTA, the 25-02, that I don't have to tell you has been controversial. A lot of people have a lot of thoughts about it. Could you speak? You said the amendments are kind of addressing some of the concerns that people in the community brought up. Could you speak a little bit more to that about what these amendments would do and kind of how they were inspired by community member concerns?
Great. Well, I'll just highlight a couple. The full packet for tomorrow's session is available on the council website. And I will say that the Planning, Housing and Parks Committee did a terrific job going through this zoning text amendment and looking at a number of different requests for making sure that we are really meeting the intent of this zoning text amendment. So, for example, as you talked about before, we heard from folks when there is what are called flag lots or through lots, people concerned about whether or not they would be allowed to have townhomes or duplexes or triplexes. And so we wanted to make sure that, and people expressed concerns that that might change the character of the local community. So we are prohibiting, or one of the amendments put forward by the committee was to prohibit the use of existing flag lots and through lots. So again, we're talking about really primarily the lots that are facing the corridors. We also had, conversation about corner lots and what would be allowable under this. And again, the committee reiterated its intent that we're talking about lots that are on these corridors, and those that would be the ones that would be under this zoning text amendment. We've heard a lot of concerns regarding parking and wanted to make sure that people understood that this zoning text amendment does not change the current parking requirements for this type of development. And in fact, the PHP committee strengthened the parking requirements for triplexes during their last session. I'm trying to think of what else would be good to highlight for you. You know, I think there was also concerns about shared driveways, and they make sure that there is a formal signed agreement between neighbors on that. Some technical amendments were made, but these are all things that the PHP committee has worked through, given many meetings, the public hearings, the multiple public hearings we held on this, and really responding to feedback we've heard from residents.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. Up next, Suzanne Pollock with MyMCM. Good afternoon, Suzanne.
Good afternoon, thanks. Wanted to go back a little bit to the flooding
Yep.
from Saturday. Is this the worst storm we've had since you put in all the county put in all the flood sensors, and did they act like they did? I mean, it seems like there were no serious injuries, no, total buildings lost or things like that. I was wondering if you're kind of satisfied with how, I know you don't want to say anything good about the storm, but did the county fare pretty well?
So we can get back to you, Susan, about the sensors and how they performed. I haven't gotten an update on that yet, about the storms over the weekend. I will say, anecdotally, hearing from residents, hearing from our emergency responders, these were bad storms. There were a number of people who needed to be rescued from their vehicles and everything. As the reports that I have received is that everyone was able to get to safety, which is our top concern. As I drove around, particularly my district yesterday, in some of the areas that were most impacted, I saw crews out working to make sure that roads were passable, trails were passable along areas like Sligo Creek, and just really appreciate all of the work that our county staff were doing. But we can get back to you on how the sensors performed and if they performed as we had hoped they would be.
Great, I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much, Suzanne. Up next, we have Jenny Abamu with WAMU. Good afternoon, Jenny.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I wanted to touch a little bit on the zoning bill. So, and just kind of asking, I know there must be some numbers or projections into like what this change will actually do in terms of how many people are being impacted. I didn't, forgive me if I missed it somewhere.
Sure. So I do have the number somewhere, and I'm looking for the number of potential properties that are on the list. But we can get you that number. And remember, this is the number of properties that could be redeveloped to allow for duplexes or triplexes or small apartments is completely up to the property owner themselves. And so this is just looking at how we provide more options in terms of the zoning that is allowed. So right now, many of these properties are under just single family zoning. So being able to have a single family home on the lot. What this ZTA zoning text amendment would do would be to provide more options so that in the future, if the owner of the property wanted to look at, instead of a single family home, having a duplex or a triplex, or even a small apartment, that would be an option that the property owner could explore. In addition to that, it is workforce housing. So if they explored that option for something like a triplex, for example, they would also need to make sure that there were at least 15% of the units in that triplex, or in a triplex, one of the three were met the workforce housing definition. But I know it exists, and I don't want to tell you the wrong number of how many properties have been identified, and we can get that to you.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. Up next, we have Milagros Melendez with El Tiempo Latino, has a couple of questions, and from my understanding, does not need interpretation services. Good afternoon, Milagros.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much, Jordan. Miss Stewart, thank you. I have a question regarding the proposal for tomorrow that it will be discussed tomorrow with council member Fanny. How will the county ensure that the new workforce housing units are really truly affordable for Latino families with low or moderate incomes? That's one of my questions, and also if the county will provide kind of a outreach and public information sessions in Spanish to explain zoning changes and housing opportunities.
Great. Thank you very much for the question. So the definition of workforce housing is actually part of our county code. So for example, for a household the size of one, the maximum income is $137,500. So if you go up to a family of, say, three, it's workforce housing is defined as a maximum income of $177,000. And so the definition of workforce housing is in the county code. And so that would be how that's what the income limits would be for that, and how we can ensure that people in our community who are, fighters, police officers, teachers, that's who this housing is really targeted for. So that's your first question. On your second question, we've been doing, and especially as you mentioned, Councilmember Natalie Fanny Gonzalez, who is the co-lead on the zoning text amendment, has been leading many meetings on this matter in English and in Spanish, as she normally does, and reaching out to the Latino community. And so I think we're looking at, hopefully as we move forward with this effort and all our efforts on housing, to make sure members of our community know what's available to them, and also getting their feedback back about what they need at this time.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Milagros. I don't see any other questions. Reporters, if you have any questions, you can note that in the chat or raise your hand, going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, back to you, Council President. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you tune in tomorrow afternoon when I'm sure it'll be a lively discussion of zoning text amendment 25-02. And Jenny, we will get an answer to your question on the number of properties, lots that this may cover in the future. So thank you all for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next week.